Welcome back. The goal of this channel is to encourage you to get out in your shop, rebuild something, hone your skills, or try something new. Every year there are thousands of cars, engines, bikes, tools, signs, and furniture that get forgotten and thrown away. Each one lost is an opportunity to get your hands dirty and create something with value. That's value that you can pass down to your kids with a story, or sell and improve your tools, or kickstart your next project. No matter what you want to do, most things require very little space and very few tools to get started and on your way to making something awesome. One of the things I really enjoy about restoration is anytime that my real life gets busy, I can turn the lights off, step away, come back when I'm ready, kick the lights back on, and pick right back up where I left off. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what basic items you need to get started, and I expect that most of you out there have a lot more than this. My name is Matt. Check out my other videos and click that like, subscribe, and share button for me. Help me get others engaged and out in their shop. First, start small. And I don't necessarily mean shop space. What I'm talking about here is find a project that's manageable. Assess your skills, assess your tool situation, and find a project that aligns. If it's been a while since you've been out in your shop or you're just getting started, you really want to find something that'll get you a win early, something that you know you can work through. It helps to have something that you're familiar with, maybe from your childhood. I know in my case, I found a 5-horse Briggs was one of the first things I rebuilt. And I did a lot of those when I was a kid. I was very familiar with them. I knew a little bit about what parts I needed and things like that. So that was a great first project for me. And I encourage you, if you can, to find something similar. If you can get some small wins early, this really helps with motivation and keeping you out in the shop and working. And you'll find over a couple small projects, your tools will expand, your knowledge will expand, and this just continues to snowball as you work on more and more things. The second thing you need is some shop space. And this really doesn't take much. You don't need a lot of space to do a variety of items. Engines, bikes, tools, small equipment, all of these things can be done easily in a small shop. But you do have to have a dedicated space. Use your garage, outbuilding, basement, spare bedroom if you have to. I remember when I was a kid, my uncle had a jet ski torn apart in his living room. Be realistic about your space and what projects you can comfortably take on. Even small projects can be a lot of fun, and we're going to do a few of those here shortly. In your space, you also need a workbench. And I mentioned in my intro that front bench I got at a rummage sale. It was about $10. I brought it home, reinforced it, squared it up, and raised it. And it's been a great bench for more than 10 years. Here's a picture of my brother, Josh, one of his benches that he did many years ago. And it's an old desk that he repurposed and reused, raised, and has been using it ever since. And I encourage you, and in the spirit of this channel, look around. There are 100 old benches out there around you people are trying to get rid of. Pick one up, reinforce it, make it your own. And a lot of times you can find them with drawers and other things of that nature. And the great thing is you're repurposing and reusing. Also, think about the style of bench. So I did first buy a wood bench. I was doing a variety of different things. I've since added this metal bench and I really like it. I would encourage you to look around. Think about the types of things that you're going to be working on and find a used bench that's appropriate. And again, make it your own. Also in your shop, lighting. Your main work area has to be lit well. You need to be able to see what you're working on. You can get all kinds of different lighting options out there today. There's LED, fluorescent, metal halide, and a million things in between. Look at your options out there and make sure that you light your main space well. Let's look at mechanical restoration. And there is no shortage of 70s, 80s, 90s, and older equipment out there being thrown away. I see all kinds of cars, small engines, small equipment, tools, signs. There's a little bit of everything out there, and each of those is an opportunity for you to get your hands dirty and put some value back into something. And many of these items can be brought back to life in a small shop. When you find small engines or small equipment out there, a lot of times, if you can clean the carburetor, the gas tank, and the air cleaner and connect it back up, the thing will likely fire up. It might smoke, it might not have as much power as it once did, but it will likely fire. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a future video coming up. Also, always remember, you absolutely don't have to powder coat something to make it awesome. You can make it awesome with some basic tools, and let's look at those. First up, you're going to need some cleaning equipment. A bucket or tote, some scrub brushes and dish soap, other rags. You're going to need some carb cleaner. I would recommend some acetone. You can find that at the hardware store. You're going to need some penetrating oil like WD-40, and you're going to need some wire brushes, and I would recommend some wet and dry sandpaper. For tools, you're going to need the basics: screwdrivers, pliers, some wrenches. I wouldn't go too crazy here up front. You can do a lot of things with wrenches, and I find myself actually going back and grabbing the wrenches when I need something. An angle grinder is a great addition. These are inexpensive. You can even get a couple of them. You're going to need some wire wheels and flap discs for cleaning metal. It also helps to have some grinding wheels and cutoff wheels. You're going to need a drill. It can be battery, corded, doesn't matter, but you're definitely going to need a drill. And you're going to need drill bits. And in the case of metal restoration, I would recommend that you get twist bits in cobalt finish. The cobalt finish will last longer, and you don't have to buy a full set. As I mentioned in an earlier video, you can get some stepped bits that are stepped about every 4 to 5 standard sizes. Also, get a small oiler and use a lot of oil when you drill metal. Your bits will last a lot longer. There are also step bits for drilling sheet metal and thin metal, and there's a ton of specialty bits like these deburring tools. And clamps. You can't have enough clamps. Pipe clamps, C-clamps, there are a million different varieties, and you'll find uses for about all of them. All right, let's talk tools that'll take you to the next level. And in any type of restoration, there are a million different specialty tools that you'll come across. As you rebuild different items, you will no doubt add to your arsenal of tools as time moves on. Things like hand tools, sockets, testing equipment, measurement tools, spring compressors, torches, organization items, and just on and on. There is really no end, and you'll come across a variety of items. However, what will help you early on more than anything are better ways to clean metal. And the first is electrolysis. And I'm releasing a video with this video to review that in detail. And we're gonna work on a few small projects. It's inexpensive to get into, and it's a great way to clean different types of metals. Something I used very early on and something I would encourage you to try as well. There are also items like ultrasonic cleaners. And I have this larger ultrasonic cleaner, and these are great for cleaning things like blocks, carburetors, and other pieces that you may not necessarily want to put in a sandblaster. If you have an air compressor, this also opens up a lot of other things. And usually these can be purchased used, and you don't have to get a huge one. When you are looking, if you are purchasing a used one, be careful with the upright, oil-free, direct drive units like these. It's hard to find parts, and the electric motors tend to have a tapered shaft, and the pumps are oilless. It's better if you can get something that's belt driven like this. These you can typically replace all the components within the system. The motor, the compressor, and typically these compressor pumps are oil rather than oilless, which do help with wear and tear. And if you can get an air compressor, that opens things up like sandblast cabinets and pot blasters, like I showed you in the introduction video. These are great ways to clean metal, but they do require you to have an air compressor. Having an air compressor also opens up things like painting equipment, not only the powder coat machine, but also paint spray guns. And these allow you to paint things like epoxy-based paints and coats that really people use in car applications that you see on Motor Trend. And with the powder coat system, as I mentioned, it really doesn't require a lot of air. You can use a very small air compressor to run that system. And a specialty tool like a welder can open up a lot of opportunities. With the inverter technology today, it has made welding units more and more affordable. And you can stick weld, MIG weld, TIG weld. There are a million different types of things out there that you can do. And there are even combo units that have a combination of these items where you can do multiple things. I have an Everlast welder, like I mentioned in my intro, a combo stick and TIG welder. And what I typically tend to do here in the shop is TIG welding. And I would encourage you to try all of the different forms. It allows you to mend old items that are broken, and it really opens up the space of being able to custom build and build new things. Next up is wood restoration. Again, same thing here. No shortage of good pieces that are being thrown away every year. Take your time and keep an eye out for decent hardwood pieces. If you're just getting started out or it's been a while, don't go buy a 200-year-old intricately carved table. Start out with something basic. Again, get that early win, and there are plenty of items out there that you can choose from. First, you need to learn the different types of wood out there, and I would recommend this kit from Rockler. It's a 50-piece kit, and it actually shows you and gives you examples of a lot of different types of wood that you'll find out there. And this kit can really make it easy to learn the different types that are out there. It also gives you a reference as you're looking and matching things up. A great example is this chair. You can see as you matching up woods, you can identify, well, one, this is definitely not walnut, right? But it is definitely oak. And you can see here that the grain of the wood, the hue of the wood matches up to these two oak templates. And you'll start to get familiar with what different types of wood have different grains and hues and shades. The one thing, it does get a little more challenging to identify the subspecies. As you can see here, this chair is most likely a white or red oak. The two options in the kit are a bur oak and then another type. It at least allows you to identify what type of wood you're working with up front. And again, I encourage you to take your time, Find something that's hardwood, there's no end. If you spend a little bit of time looking what's out there. The only thing you can really do with plywood is possibly re-veneer it or paint it. And there's some cool things you can do out there with those types of things. But if you're really looking to restore something and put time into something, take a few minutes, spend a little bit of time, and find a project that's really worthwhile to get after. Here, you're going to need a lot of the same cleaning equipment, scrub brushes, rags, and a lot of other things. You need to get familiar with turpentine and mineral spirits. These are two things you can find at the hardware store, and these can be used to remove varnish and surface stains. And you're going to need lots and lots of sandpaper. A wide variety, anything from a 2000 grit all the way down to 60 or 40 grit. For basic tools, you're going to need screwdrivers, pliers, you're going to need a drill. For drill bits, I would get twist and I would get titanium. If you're doing more just wood, there's really no need to spend the extra money and get the cobalt finish. A titanium finish bit will work just fine here. Similar to metalworking, there are also hole saws, spade bits, split point bits, auger bits, and a million other specialty type bits that you will tend to run across as you work through different items. You're going to need some hand saws. You're likely going to need to replace some broken pieces or do some structural integrity repairs here and there. So definitely need to have some saws. A palm sander up front comes in very handy. It can take a little bit of the elbow grease work out of sanding on various projects. And clamps. Lots and lots of clamps. And here's where pipe clamps come in really handy, because if you only have a set or two of the brackets, you can change out your pipe length for different types and sizes of projects. You need to get familiar with wood glue and wood putty, especially when you're restoring. You can always fill gapped holes with wood glue, let it set up, re-drill, reconnect to help strengthen things up. And then definitely get familiar with stains, varnishes. What is boiled linseed oil? What is Danish oil? And what's good for different types of woods? And you can varnish over stain. As long as you've allowed the stain to set up fully and fully cure per the instructions, you can absolutely varnish over it. And it really helps protect a hardwood for a longer period of time. And then tools to take you to the next level. Of course, a circular saw, miter saw, table saw, a planer, a router, a scroll saw will allow you to more easily replace broken pieces. Also, shop vac here really helps keep dust controlled, and even a larger dust collection system, if you're really serious about getting into it, can really help keep your shop clean and clear. And air compressors here. Similar to metal restoration, your air compressor can be used with a paint gun. You can spray stains and varnishes. You don't have to use a brush. And of course, if you really want to go beyond just wood restoration and get into woodworking, there are, just like metalworking, a million special tools out there that you'll find that'll really up your game. And if that's a goal of yours, that's awesome. And it comes back to setting a goal and working your way there. And you can do it in sub-stages and smaller goals that'll allow you to go step by step by step to get to that bigger end goal that you're looking to do. Next up is electrical restoration, and here you'll find things like lighted signs, old gaming systems, pinball machines, jukeboxes, old radios, and other things like that. It's important here that, just like the other items, you need to assess your skill level and assess the tools that you have. And if you have a big goal, like to restore a jukebox at some point, Don't start there. Start with something smaller. Do an old radio. There are a million of them out there, and get that working and on your shelf, blasting some old AM. Other things like that that you can do in smaller chunks, smaller projects to learn and expand your skills and knowledge. What are all the different components that all transfers well as you move up and want to do bigger and bigger things? I think a jukebox is a great goal for a lot of you out there. And I think it's something that you can work towards by working through some of those smaller items. And little by little getting to where you want to be. That's what it's all about here. Improving your skills, honing your knowledge and expertise, and really understanding how things work. The first thing I would encourage here is learn DC wiring. And if you understand this basic concept of a circuit, then you understand DC wiring. Every wiring schematic out there, no matter how complex, comes back to this basic design. You can put switches in it, you can put resistors in it, you can put amplifiers and all kinds of other things in it. But it comes back to this simple principle, that electricity needs a closed circuit and pathway for the power to run. If it's not connected in a circuit, in a path, then the electricity will not flow. And we're going to talk about this in the future. We'll get into this in more depth with DC wiring when we convert those junk flat screen TVs into something super cool. So stay tuned for that. So let's look at the basic tools you're going to need to get started here. And you're going to need wire cutters and wire strippers. There are several varieties of these, and I like this style of the wire strippers the best because without adjustment, you can do a range of size wires. And then of course you can adjust the strippers to do different sizes of wire, but they will do very small wires and you can adjust them to strip a different length. And it's as simple as putting the wire into the pliers and then pulling the handles and stripping it. And it does a perfect, nice strip every time. You can adjust the pressure of this upper arm depending on size wire you need. And if you're going to be doing any extended amount of this stuff, I would encourage you to get this style of wire stripper. You're also going to need some small screwdriver. You're also going to want a soldering iron. And there are several different varieties online to choose from depending on your budget. And you're going to need some solder wire. And I would pay attention to the sizes here. I like to use 0.6 or 0.8 millimeter when I'm soldering LED connections and other smaller connections. And then I'll use even 2 millimeter size wire to solder larger items like plugs. You're going to want some helping hands, and that'll help you keep the wire positioned as you're using your soldering iron and solder wire. You'll want some wire, of course, and you'll need some heat shrink wrap in various sizes. And then you need to learn about connectors and have a few connectors on hand. And these can be wire terminals. There's quick splice connectors. There are pin plugs like the Dutch connectors and other pin plugs. And there are a million other options out there on the different types of connectors and tools for those connectors that you can use. We'll be using a few of them. I do like the Dutch connectors, as I mentioned. They're a little pricier, but they're mostly waterproof and they're very easy to use and they can be reused, which is really nice. Here, tools that'll take you to the next level are things like a DC bench tester. And these are an inverter. It converts AC to DC, and you can use it as a power source instead of a battery. It also works great for electrolysis. And that inverter comes in a lot of different fashions, even like this, that converts, again, AC to DC so that you can then run things like LED lighting. This is an important concept, especially when we get to those junk TVs. Other tools like a tinning pot allow you to tin wire very quickly if you have a bunch of them that you need to connect up. And then I would encourage you to spend some time on websites like ledsupply.com and others like that, looking at connectors, the lights, the inverters, what's out there, what's available. And we'll be talking more about that on this channel very soon. I also wanted to make a quick note on lithium-ion batteries. These batteries are great, they have a lot of starting power, they tend to last longer, but they do require a special charger. The reason is these batteries operate in a tighter voltage range than the traditional batteries, and traditional chargers can't typically handle that range. When using these batteries in your builds, they also require a special voltage regulator to charge a battery off the engine alternator. And this is important because the voltage regulator to charge a lithium-ion battery properly is over $100. And when you compare that with the $10 voltage regulator for a traditional battery, this is why I've still been using the traditional batteries in my builds, and I have not converted to really using lithium ion in most of my items. I do expect over time, and I'm hopeful, that that voltage regulator for lithium ion batteries will come down in price. Next, let's talk about where to find items. And the first one up is friends and family. And I'm not talking about a pyramid scheme. I'm talking about just let your friends and family know that you're looking for old stuff to rebuild or repair. As they're looking on social media, as they're talking to other people, they'll often reach out with this or that you could look at as potential projects. So they're always a great resource. And for me, my dad and brother and myself, we're always exchanging different things that we see here and there that might be an opportunity. Also, I got to call out Craigslist and Facebook. You can use those. There's a lot of things out there. If you just keep an eye out, check it every once in a while. I know you can set up different kinds of alerts and other things of that nature. So use those items. Often you'll see people out there from time to time just wanting to get rid of an item that doesn't have a lot of value. Well, that's an opportunity for you to pick up and add some value to it. I also like auction sites. So a couple I use are HighBid and estatesales.net. Both of those are a go-to for me. I know on both of those sites you can set alerts and get email updates and other notifications as different items become available. That works for me in my area. I guarantee if you're in a different area, there are likely sites that have local auctions that you can bid on different items. Be a little careful there. Those tend to have upfront viewings where you could go check something out if you really want it. But if you're not able to go, it's an online type auction. Just be careful about what you purchase and know what you're getting into. And this is called a newspaper. And yes, they do still exist, especially in small towns like mine and even larger ones. Here there are often estate sales and other things for sale. I really like to use these for estate sales and finding local estate sales where they're not going to be online necessarily, and it's a great place to get out, go on a Saturday morning, have a cup of hot chocolate or coffee, and go walk around the sale. It's a lot of fun. Another thing here are salvage yards. And as I mentioned, I think it was on one of my Friday morning live streams, going to a salvage yard can really yield some great results. Not only can you find old projects to bring home and work on, but you can also find test projects. You know, for example, if you're picking up welding or a new style of welding, there's all kinds of stuff at the yard, especially if you have cleaning methods like we're going to talk about here on this channel, where you can test and try out different things without really damaging or destroying something you really want to rebuild. So it's a great resource, and I would encourage you, if you have time on a Saturday morning, go to a salvage yard and go walk the yard. You'll find some pretty neat stuff. Next, I want to talk about the acquisition of knowledge. And one of the best things that I think about the internet is it truly is a library at our fingertips. I cannot even begin to talk you through or take you through or show you all of the different things that you might run into out there. But don't let that stop you. Once you get a project, do some research on it. It can be quite a bit of fun to dig in and learn about it as you're going through it. So use the internet, use that great wide web. There's usually someone out there with a similar project or parts or a manual. And I would encourage you, when you start getting into something, buy the manual, look through it, use it as a reference, hang it on your shelf, and use the information that's out there to your advantage. And learn by working through the project. Take lots of pictures as you're taking it apart. These become great references for later as you need to put something back together. This is really great for things like throttle linkage setups. Make sure that you're taking pictures of your project as you're tearing it down. And as you work through items, you just naturally learn. You gain knowledge, you gain experience, you might add a few tools. And again, that just snowballs and transfers on and on and on. And you learn and you get more capable with everything you work through, success or failure. And always remember, I've got your back. Send me a comment or send me an email at heritagerestoworks@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer your questions if you're running into challenges or have something unique. In the end, it's more about motivation than it is about having the widest tools or the best shop space. Put some of your free time to work for you and have fun in the process. Set a goal and find an item, and be patient. I promise when you look back, you'll be glad you took that first step. And if you have a stalled project, get back out there, kick the lights back on, set a roadmap, and get back on it by making it a priority. Check out my other videos and click that like, subscribe, and share button for me. Help me get others engaged and working out in their shops.